we've been looking at Eagle position rooms. The last two position rooms, we talked about the corner and the offensive line, exceptional rooms. Absolutely exceptional wins when you look at those rooms that you have with the cornerback position and also the offensive line. Here's the quarterback. What do you think your quarterback room right now? Somewhere this season, your room's going to be count on to win a game because it has been the last 2 years, and it will happen again this year. That's a trend. Jalen will miss time. So how do you feel about your room before we go into the player evaluation? Jalen will miss time because he has. What do you think about the quarterback situation that you have in your room right now? A, the players that you have, and here are the players: Hurts, Mariota, Ian Book, and Tanner McKee. That's who you have in your quarterback room right now. But Jalen will miss. Jalen has missed time. Once again, Quan, Jalen has missed time. He's missed 3 games, and dude, I'm not going to go over fantasy talk here. He has missed time. And if he missed any more time, and how about this? I'll say this to you guys. If Jalen Hurts had missed time like he did a year ago, you wouldn't have won home field advantage. You would have lost every one of those games because you would have played a first play schedule. You'd have lost every football game down the stretch. If you're playing that schedule this year with him missing those amount of games and then him coming back hurt, you may have won one of those games. That's not going to – you're able to get through the Saints. You're able to get through some of those shitty teams at the end of the year. Or wait, you couldn't get through the Saints. You couldn't beat the Saints who are on a respirator. You're not beating good teams down the stretch without Hurts. Okay? Here's how I look at your quarterback room. We'll do it with Jalen Hurts and start here. Here's my evaluation on him and how I see him as a player. Tremendous 2022 campaign. Probably the best quarterback I've seen execute the RPO in NFL history. I've never seen anybody run an RPO as well as him. It's not the fact that he put up big numbers, because he didn't. But what he did was his numbers mattered. Do you understand what I'm saying here? Like the 3,700 passing yards that he had and the 22 touchdowns and the limited amount of picks were all impactful. Where sometimes you see guys put up 4,000 or 5,000 yards and you just go like, do you remember the year that, what was his name? Jameis Winston threw for 5,000 yards and had 30 touchdowns, but had 30 picks? It was a season of nothing. I mean, Jalen Hurts' season compared to that is night and day. Every yard he threw for mattered. Every yard he gained mattered. Everything, okay, mattered. It just didn't matter. But it for him, Hurts, tremendous. He improved on his accuracy. He improved on his deep throws. He's the best sneak quarterback I've ever seen. I mean, his decision-making on the sidelines is great. He improved everywhere. It was just great improvement. Throwing the ball, his touch passes, got better towards the end of the year before he got injured. So he started to improve there as well. Um, all in all, the guy is absolutely worth the investment on what the Eagles are making. Now, again, what you're looking at is, here's the big question. What is the improvement this year? See, I don't think Hurts improves on anything he does. I think, except for this, his decision making. Jalen's not going to do 5,000 yards. He's not a 4,500 yard thrower. He's not a 35 touchdown guy. But again, that's not what they do. That's not the system they throw. That's not the system they run. Okay? He plays within a formula that they've created for his skill set. The biggest problem that you have with player development is that you think he has to get to this particular number where he has to continue to improve. As long as Jalen Hurts continues to improve on his completion percentage, his health, and his decision-making, it's not important if he throws for 4,000 yards. It's not important if he throws for 30 touchdowns. It's just not important. Look, I've never seen this stat. So how in the world do you have a quarterback that didn't throw for 4,500 yards and two guys had 1,000 yards, and you had a quarterback in Carson Wentz throw for 4,000 yards, and you didn't have a guy with reception yardage over 800 yards that year? How's that possible? Who did more that year? Who was more impactful? I don't know. They were both very impactful in different ways. You understand what I'm saying here? Wentz was counted on to throw the ball. You didn't have a receiver that year that he threw for 4,000 yards, over 800 yards. Think about that. He didn't have one guy over 800 yards catching at wide receiver. Not one. And yet he threw for 4,000. It's incredible. And yet Jalen didn't throw for 3,900 yards and had two guys with 1,000. It's just different. It's just different. And you've got to come to grips with that. And again, it's a style that you have to have. See, I'll tell you something else that the Eagles do fundamentally when it comes to organization. They make sure, and that's why the owner of the team front-loaded that contract, because Hurts needs a ton of people around him. Those other guys don't. Like I said to you, there's one playmaker in Buffalo. One. There's one playmaker in Kansas City. You could never win in Philadelphia with one playmaker. You can't. Not a chance. No running back, a tight end, and no receivers. You're not winning in Philly. Those guys are proving it. They're winning without that. And personally, when you get into a game against Philly, Buffalo's favored. Philadelphia's favored because they got better players. It is going to be very rare that the Eagles are going to go into a football game where you're not going to have the better personnel. It's good. Every single game that you go into, maybe San Francisco, where they'll have an equal in talent at the roster. But you're going to go into games where other guys are counted on to do more than what Jalen is. That's okay, though. They built the team this way. It's right to build it this way. You know, what's awesome about how they're doing it, too, in Philly, is that they're not spiting their own self by going, we got to have a system in here. We got to have a guy do it this way. They're building that football team around that guy's skill set, 100%. The same way Kansas City's building that team around that guy's skill set. That's the lesser team that won the first Super Bowl with Andy Reid. Okay? That's the lesser team. The first team around was more loaded. All right. So look, again, Hurts from the first year to last year, Jalen was absolutely improved. Now, the question mark will be, what is that improvement going to look like this year? What is that going to look like? Does he just continue to get better at what he's doing? Dude, if he gets better at what he's doing, that's all we need. You're not going to say, hey, to sit here and say that Jalen Hurts will throw for more than Donovan McNabb in total yardage when everything is said and done is preposterous. He may get 30 grand, something like he may not, but that's not going to be important. He'll have more wins. That's the most important thing here. Okay? Now, with the way the NFL is, depending on what they do, by continuing to put star players around him, like I said, 3,700 yards is not exceptional, but it doesn't have to be. Those are not empty calorie stats. Those are all stats that matter to every dude. When the games that Jalen was like this, 275 passing and 75 yards rushing, fabulous. Dude, he does that every day. He does two. If Jalen Hurts comes away from a game 250 passing and 75 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns total, you're never going to lose. You're never going to lose. You're just never going to lose. Okay? All right. Here's my takeaway on Marcus Mariota, former Heisman winner. Here was the problem that he had in Tennessee. When you guys look at Marcus Mariota, and I think, Tony, you brought this up. I think you brought this up when they acquired him. What do you think the Raiders and also Atlanta saw in Marcus Mariota and why they moved off him? Why do you think those organizations moved off of Marcus Mariota? See, I think this has got a lot to do with coaching with him. What's up, Chris? Name goes, Mariota never had weapons. Yeah, Darren Waller in Oakland or / Vegas. I'm not sure if I don't remember. I don't think he had A.J. Brown in Tennessee, but they never utilized A.J. Brown. He had Derrick Henry there. They got the kid Pitts in Atlanta. What do you think his problem and how organizations see him? Okay, how do you see him? Here's the problem that people with his pocket presence is not very good. Okay, he doesn't have a feel in the pocket, and when you ask him to be a drop back guy, he doesn't know the front door, side door, back door on escaping. He doesn't have a feel for it. There's 3 doors for quarterbacks, and they're taught it: front, side, back. Okay, on escaping. And when you're back there in a 7-step, you've got to have a feel for pressure. And he doesn't have a feel for pressure. Now, in my opinion, I think the systems that he's played in aren't conducive to the strengths that he has. Why in the world would you put him like they did in Atlanta last year in a 7-step drop when you know fundamentally he struggles with pressure? Why would you continue to coach that? It just doesn't make sense when they do that. Okay? It doesn't make sense. But yet what you keep trying to do is jam that square peg in that round hole, and you keep trying to push that in there. See, to me, I think he's in a perfect system right now. Can I tell you what I would do? I think right now, him in an RPO system, I think he should have went to Indianapolis and not went to Philadelphia, because I think he could have played there. I think you put him in a Jalen Hurts offense, I want to see him run that. I think he can run that. He ran that at Oregon. That was the system they ran at Oregon. Remember, after him, then they had to go to a Justin Herbert type offense, and Justin Herbert ran that RPO. Don't you guys understand? See, This is where people miss out on evaluation. Nobody had that evaluation on Justin Herbert coming out of Oregon because everybody was like, he didn't really run that system all that hot and throw for a ton of yards up there in Oregon because they kept the RPO system in there for him. He's not an RPO. He's a 7-step guy. Once they got him down to Los Angeles with the Chargers, they turned him into a true bona fide 7-step, and that's why he's throwing for a ton of more yards, and he looks 10 times better than he did at Oregon. He was running the Mariota offense up there, and everyone said this. I remember Coward going like this, man, I don't know. He wasn't really that effective with the Ducks. He wasn't running the right system. He was running Mariota's system. Well, that's reversed with Mariota. Mariota kept being asked to throw the ball down the field, and that's not what he does. He's an RPO guy. He was exceptional at Oregon doing that. But yet every place he went, Tennessee, Oakland, John Gruden's not an RPO coach. You think John Gruden was going to implement an RPO system? And get this, when they started doing a little bit of that, I thought he played pretty well with the Raiders. I was actually kind of shocked they moved off him. So, but that's not John Gruden's style. He had to go back to doing what he does best, and that's why Mariota was never in the picture. He liked him. He's such a likable guy. And they tried to do the same shit in Atlanta. They just got limited talent in Atlanta. Now they got the kid Pitts from Florida. They had the wide receiver down there. Then they moved off him. So they're in transition right now. Mariota never really had a chance down there to be successful. So you bring him in to Philly. I think it's a perfect fit. He's just not going to get the reps, though. Okay? He's just not going to get the reps that he needs. But to me, you put him in a system that has a Jalen Hurts type of system in Chicago with what they're trying to implement up there with Justin Fields, maybe even Arizona. I don't know. But if you're going to think that he's going to drop back and be a 7-step guy, which all these places tried him at, that's a mistake. Philly, really, in my opinion, you got a better quarterback in your building right now than anything San Francisco has, and that includes their starter. I don't think Brock Purdy's better than Marcus Mariota. In the system that he has in Philadelphia, Marcus Mariota's not Jalen Hurts. Don't get me, I'm not saying that. But he can win some ball games. And this time when they go to the backup quarterback when they have to, it is not going to be the Gardner Minshew nightmare that they went through a year ago with those 2 games. He can run this RPO, man. He's a good player, okay? Who said that Darnold can run the RPO? Anyway, so they have a better quarterback in their first and second team quarterback. Let me think. Anybody else in the NFC have better quarterback, first and second team? No. Think about that. The Eagles' first and second, Marcus Mariota could start on probably 10 teams in the league. Okay? 10 teams. He could start in Tampa. You have the first and second best quarterbacks in the NFC. I think you know where we're going here. Ian Book, he's a guy. Nobody special. Nothing to really evaluate. He's a dude, but with a starving league that needs quarterbacks, guys like him, the Chase Daniels of the world, are going to have jobs. But I don't think he makes a 53-man roster because of what they did in the draft. They went and they got this Tanner McKee. See, this doesn't make sense to me. Here's this McKee kid from Stanford. Okay, he's 6'6". He ran a six flat 40. So we know obviously he's not an RPO guy. This guy ran a 6 flat 40. 5'8", 6 flat, something like that. So he is not athletic. Now, here's something to think about, though. Alabama, Texas offered him scholarships. So he was highly recruited, went on a 2-year mission. His family's Mormon. So he's a mature kid. Got better in 2022, but he has no mobility. And in my opinion, he's a 7-step guy. Now, why would you draft that? You draft that because you always draft quarterbacks. Okay? I've told you this before. If I'm a general manager of a football team, I don't give a crap about, where a guy went in the draft, especially a quarterback, because of Brady. Brady going in the 6th round, I'm always taking a quarterback. And you should always draft a quarterback. Okay? He was highly recruited. Okay? He was highly recruited. And he's got a weird motion. But if you watched him in 2022, okay? If you watched him in 2022, he got better. But he's got kind of like a Bernie Kosar kind of throwing motion. So all in all, I don't know what they're doing with him. I don't know who he is. But he's decent. He's decent. All that being said, the Eagles quarterback room, another good group of kids. You got an MVP candidate. You got a guy who could start in other places. You got a quarterback, if things completely go south, who is a guy who is a statue back there, so it's a little bit different. Doesn't really match up to like Tanner McKee doesn't match up to the personnel you have on your team. Like he's like doesn't belong. Like what doesn't belong here? He doesn't belong in the room. But the guy Book is not that hot. But he's a dude because he went to Notre Dame, won a lot of games at Notre Dame, whatever. But all in all, it's another good room that Philly has done their. See, here's the difference here: what Philly's done compared to San Francisco. San Francisco on July 14th is not prepared for a disaster. Philly's prepared for disaster. He's prepared for it. Okay. Name goes that Mariota might be the new Foles. In that system, maybe. Okay? In that system, maybe. Okay? Probably. See, again, I think just like Nick Foles, I'll say this again about Nick Foles. Outside of Philadelphia, the failures of Nick Foles have been coaching. He's gotten his best coaching in Philly, and that's the only place he's ever got good coaching. The rest of it have been train wrecks. Chicago, Indianapolis, Jacksonville. They weren't really. Hey, Frank was on a respirator as a head coach in Indy. He wasn't going to save anything in Indianapolis. Foles has not gotten good coaching anywhere he's been but Philadelphia. And that's why he's really not been able to have a consistent career. I mean, every time he's in Philly, he shows you what he's capable of doing when he gets good coaching. And that's why in the NFL, it matters. And that's why when we started the show off, you guys are under the impression you have good coaches going into that New England game. You got solid coaches, you mean? Or you think you do. I don't know. I mean, of all the things that you go into a football game, watch this. My quarterback's good. My wide receivers are good. My offensive line is exceptional. My corners are great. We got really a lot of talent with a high ceiling at D tackle. What about your coordinators? I don't know. That's a fact. And you're doing that against Belichick. So you're not at an advantage there. And that's what brings the game closer, is coaching, preparation. attacking weakness. It's not like college football. College football, you can line up. Again, that's why you see most of these programs at the college ranks, they could just line up and kick the shit out of teams. Well, why? Because you get better people. You don't have better coaching. Nick Saban doesn't have better coaching than, say, LSU. Okay? He doesn't. He's got better players or one key player. You think Ed Orgeron? Look, I love Ed, but do you actually think Ed Orgeron, when they beat Alabama, is a better coach than Nick? He had better people. That year they drafted 68 guys in the NFL draft, LSU. They had better people. We see it every year in the NFL. The best team doesn't always win. But the best quarterback does. Usually. Foles played out of his mind in 17 with the best thing that the Eagles have had. And to me, I say this, and one of the reasons that I say this is because it was so prevalent. That year in 17, the Eagles had what? The best combination of O-line, D-line in the league. And it played itself out. When you played the Patriots, and I have never seen the Patriots get their faces kicked in the way they got their asses handed to them in that ball game. I've said this to you. By the fourth quarter, they had the white flag up because Philly had killed them. It was a demonstration of domination. Foles played great, but that line, even with substitutes, dominated the Patriots. Dominated them. Okay? Dominated them. It was a display. Hey, I don't know why, and I'm not arguing over coaching when you're bringing up guys like Brian Johnson and Sean Desai versus a Bill Belichick coach team. Don't go there, because I'm not responding to that. It's a stupid conversation. That's why he makes $20 million a year as a coach. Some go like this: he's on the hot seat. Well, he's not on the hot seat for coaching. He's on the hot seat because of what? Can I tell you what I'm hearing? What's going to happen in New England? They're not going to take his coaching duties away. They're going to take his personnel duties away. And they're going to bring a personnel director in like Nick Caserio, who's worked up there before, who's down in Houston now. Nick turned the opportunity to come down and come back to New England. And Houston kept him because Houston told Nick Caserio prior to the draft. Remember the rumor that was out there? After the draft, Caserio was going to go back to New England. Well, the owner, the McNair family, came to him and said, no, hey, listen, we're going to give you total control. Do what you want. So they pushed all their chips in. They went and got C.J. Stroud. They moved up to get Will Anderson. And Caserio's not leaving Houston. He's not, because they've given him more power, more autonomy, and that's what he wanted. He'll never get that in New England with Belichick in the building. Belichick is going to probably be involved in who's going to come in personnel-wise. But the one thing that Bill has struggled with in New England has been premium offensive players. They've not. Who is the number one offensive football player that they've drafted in the first round in 20 years he's been up there? Can you tell me? Who is the number one first-round guy they've drafted in 20 years since Belichick's been in that place? Can you name a guy? He's not. He's better at player development with later-round picks or free agents. Corey Dillon wasn't drafted by the Patriots. Can you name me one? Name me one. Think about that. In 20 plus years, they have never drafted a first-round guy that was with any quality. And when they tried to go get that McKeel Henry kid, he was terrible. He was terrible. When they got Aaron Hernandez, he was a 4th or 5th rounder. Gronk was a 2. They converted Edelman and Amendola. They made a trade for Welker. Welker was not coming up to New England to be a wide receiver. Do you know that Wes Welker was brought to New England to be a special teams guy? Because that's what he was in Miami. He was a special teams guy. And then Brady, of course, developed into the ultimate. Coaching developed Brady. Did you see Brady the other day crying? You see that made-up shit every year that the media had, that Brady and Belichick had an adversarial relationship? That couldn't be more of a lie than after the fact, when everything is said and done, when Brady has all the ammunition now because he's not playing anymore, to take a complete shit on Belichick. And he didn't. He cried with emotion of thanks for what he did by developing into the player that he was. Coaching. That's coaching. When a player of Brady's stature goes, I'd be nothing without him. That's belief. All the years of ESPN lying and Fox lying and all the reporters lying that Brady and Belichick, all the dumbass comments that Bayless made that Brady and Belichick were at each other's throats, couldn't have been further from the truth. Couldn't have been further from the truth. Okay? Couldn't have been further from the truth. Those guys all believed in one another. And that's why Brady's the greatest player in the history of the National Football League. Yeah, Brady doesn't get too many first-round picks. Not at 29 and 32. That's another great point. But name. Then he turns around and turns a converted quarterback in Edelman into a wide receiver. He plays Troy Brown at both corner and wide receiver. He gets a guy in Deion Branch who's an MVP in a Super Bowl. Look at all the stiffs at wide receiver. There's not one Hall of Fame skilled player he played with in New England or coached that was the first-round draft choice. In 6 Super Bowls, something that even Howie can't even claim. In those 6 Super Bowls, they didn't win one Super Bowl with a first-round draft choice at the skilled position. Not one. That's a testament to player development. Okay? This is laughable. We're going to beat the dog crap out of the Pats. Okay? Okay? How about this, Eagle? You got the absolute most inexperienced coordinators in the National Football League. Is that fact or fiction? Hey, is that fact or fiction? Fact or fiction? Is that fact or fiction? Fact or fiction? Can't move the goalpost on that. You can't move the goalposts. Okay? All right. I want to show you something too, and I want to talk about Andy Reid here. I want to talk about Andy Reid. Hour number 2. Hey, Philly Godfather is going to be with us at 5:30 Eastern time. We're going to talk with him, and we're going to get his thoughts as he looks at the upcoming NFL season. We're 11 days out from training camp. Do me a favor, please hit the like button. Keep it here.